Feel the bug, you wanna feel the beat, and I know mama told me not to wear it out. Welcome everybody to another edition of Rampage Recap. It's a little cozy late night edition for many of you if you're catching this live on the East Coast or even further east over in Europe. If you're up this early, man, you got problems. or impressive either way. Joining me again is Rampage co-commissioner Nexus. Are you the only commissioner for the Duel League? Actually, I should probably clarify that. No,
you know what? I think I am. I'm pretty sure. I think there was this one. I can't remember his name.
This guy.
It's not important. Not important.
No. Not a big deal. Anyway, Nexus joins me again. Thank you for making time as the day drags on into night. It's a little bit of a late broadcast, but only 1 week remains in the first season of the Rampage Duel League. We don't have a whole lot to cover, but we got some good matches. We saw this past week, we saw the end of the intermediate division and the crowning of its champion. So, I don't know, what you got to say?
Yeah, very exciting. Just finally reaching it. So hopefully, I was trying to get this done in like a month, so throughout July. Dragging a bit to August a little bit, not a huge deal, but competition's strong, so that's all that really matters.
Yeah, competition has been very strong. In fact, every game pretty much over the last week has been very close throughout the pro and the intermediate divisions. Rookie division is done, so that happened. The finals for that happened, I believe, the week before.
Yep.
And we finally close out the intermediate division. Let's take a look at those brackets real quick. The pro bracket, as it currently stands, Nexus moved on to the finals, while Lang and Poto are facing each other in the lower bracket, round 5. That's how things are as of the games we're covering now. In reality, however, those games have already been played. Nexus, who will you be facing in the finals?
So, yeah, a little sneak peek. I'm facing Lang in the finals. So
Lang had vanquished both Poto and Disparel to come back for a shot at Nexus, who he has not faced, as Lang had dropped down to the lower bracket in round 2 in a defeat to X-Wizard. So he's making a run back. So this will be the first time we will see these two players fight in the finals. That is a best of 5 with a 1-round advantage towards yourself, if I believe correctly.
Yeah, so just essentially as a reward for any winner bracket player, you want to give them some sort of reward for not losing. And in this tournament, it's just going to be one round advantage like we saw in intermediate.
All right, and then we're going to take a look at intermediate, actually. And that is the final picture of the intermediate division. Saltmine faced Dragon in the finals after Dragon moved up from Killer 007. And Dragon played with a 1-round disadvantage and brought it back. So congratulations to our champion for the intermediate division. Well played, well earned.
Yeah, that was a big one. It goes to show that whilst this 1-round advantage is important, it's not end-all be-all. Like, you can still win off of that disadvantage, especially considering the way it works is the winner bracket player automatically wins his map and has to play the loser bracket player's map right after. So the first map will actually be the loser's bracket map. So whilst the loser bracket player obviously is going to be going in 1 round down, he has a little bit of advantage playing his own map first.
Yep, that is kind of an interesting dynamic. I don't think I've seen it done that way in particular before, but pretty refreshing. Pretty cool to see a result as close as this one was. Speaking of the result, how about we talk about those games?
Yeah, of course. So, did we already cover semifinals? And
we have not covered the semifinals
not.
Well, we definitely haven't covered the semifinals of the Pro Division.
Yeah.
Yourself against Disparel, where you won 3-0. And the score count for that is 50-39 on King 1, 50-35 on Judas 23, and 50-35 again on King 1. The best of 5 match came to a quick close with Nexus sweeping Despero and banishing him to the Shadow Realm or lower bracket, whichever you prefer. So after you took Despero's home field King 1 in a pretty close match, he just wasn't able to get a foothold in Judas or the rematch that followed in round 3 on King 1. So, anything to say about your game here?
Right, yeah. So semifinals, best of 5 match. I believe the only best of 5 match, which isn't, I mean, outside of intermediate, that isn't going to be with 1 round up on a player because it's not finals. So this could have been a really cool one. You know, to be brutally honest, I don't think this should have been the semifinals matchup with the way the brackets worked out this tournament. Despero didn't necessarily have an easy run, but I think he had a lot easier run than a lot of players did. I think if you put certain players in his exact same bracket position, they could have made it all the way to semifinals as well. And I think it showed in this game. Like, to be honest with you, I sort of half-assed a lot of it. After the first round, I was just kind of trying to hit flick shots for a lot of it, hitting some 360s, just kind of having fun with it. Didn't necessarily have to try super hard. I know Sparrow has quite a few disadvantages. Obviously the ping, he was having some difficulties with spawns, which he was saying. To be honest, I don't think that really was a huge factor, especially if I'm not playing my hardest. You know, you would think you'd be able to get out of that situation. But yeah, I don't really think this should have been the semifinals match. Of course, everyone has their own opinions to it. Personally, though, the way I look at it is, you know, the loser of this semifinals match, the worst they can be, like the worst position they can get in the tournament as a whole, is 3rd place. You know, you gotta ask yourself, do you think Sparrow is the 3rd best player in this bracket? Personally, I'd say no, but you know, he did earn his way here. I know earlier in the bracket he played X-Wiz and he was injured. I think that should have been the spot where he kind of had a little bit more difficulties than he did previously. Didn't end up happening, and you know, this is how it turned out.
Yeah, Despero did play Skull Rush in round 1, Dante in round 2, and X-Wizard in round 3. All of those were 2-0 victories. So you may think that this was not a semi-final grade matchup, but Despero did earn his way here, and I'm not sure you would say the same thing if you were playing against X-Wizard, and we'll put you on the spot with that one.
You don't think so? Yeah. Well, I think me versus X-Wiz would have been a much closer game, to be honest. With, you know, he did come up 2 rounds. He didn't lose a round coming up to this, but you also look at it and you see him winning by margins of 4 or 5 frags on every single one of them. You know, I truly believe that if you put a player like, you know, someone like Vinny, who's a very strong player but perhaps not a top 3 player, in his exact same position, I think he could have done it. I think, you know, Vinny played like a Mar really early, so he had a tough run at it, and then played Hate, didn't quite make it. He got out all the way in round 1. I honestly think in the right situation, someone like Vinny could have been 3rd best player if he got the same bracket run.
Well, that is unfortunately how the brackets do shape up. It is a risk we all take when we sign up for a double elimination bracket. You get 2 shots, and
very true.
That's just how it goes. Good effort from Despero to bring it into the 30s of each round, but unfortunately not enough against Nexus, who moved on to the finals. Now, we've got more pro games to cover. In the lower bracket, we saw Amar against Lang, where Lang took it in 2-1. Amar won 50-45 on SSL2, and Lang won 50-45 on his opponent's home field of Dweller 2. And it came down to the tiebreaker of the week, Lazarus DM Map 4, 50-48 for Lang. Came down to the wire. I mean, what more can you say? But what stands out to me during this matchup and when I watched the demos, Lang and Amar took each other's home field, and each of them only off by 5 frags, so it was close no matter what way you slice it.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is honestly one of the highlights of the tournament so far. Like, if you were to bet that Lang was going to win Dweller and Amar was going to win SSL2, I think you would have been like crazy. Like, no one would ever guess that. So they just completely switched home fields and managed to make it work. I think Lang, probably was taken by surprise by Amar on his own home field. I don't think we've seen Lang lose his home field or really come close to losing his home field except for this match. Yeah.
In fact, I believe that's the only time someone's got to the 40s against Lang, let alone defeated him.
Yeah. Yeah. So Amar didn't go out without, you know, a fight. So really good to see from Amar. Honestly, I think Amar really just lost it in his game on Dweller. I think he ran the chance after winning SSL 2 by surprise. He really ran the chance at eliminating Lang here. I think if anyone could have done it, it would have been Amar here, especially going into a field like Dweller. I saw in the demo actually, you know, Lang was just like, he jokingly said GG because he thought he wasn't going to be able to do it. Amar just incredibly strong on Dweller. It's home field, a bit like Pobla in the sense where it doesn't play like a whole lot of other maps. And he's just such an expert at it. But Lang, ever since his loss against Xwiz, he's really changed his play style. He's really slowed things down. He's really tried to play with a little more
conservative style.
Yeah, exactly. Rather than just running at players and using his aim as his only strong point. Now he's got kind of everything to him, and he's showed that improvement. I think his hard work has paid off in this match.
For those novice duelers out there, those aspiring champions, it shows that even the pro players they'll adjust their playstyle. They will learn as the bracket unfolds. It's great to see that from Lang, and he is rewarded with a victory, moving himself further in the lower bracket. Next match in the Pro Division lower bracket was against X-Wizard and Poto, where Poto took it 2-0. And unfortunately, it's with a heavy heart that we at the recap desk have to announce that Pro Division player X-Wizard has been afflicted by a physical injury during this battle. Unfortunately, he was unable to recover from it in time for his lower bracket game, but still, to play while in pain in the hobby that we all enjoy, which is typically high stress on your arms. So it's great to see that from X-Wiz. You know, great sport, played through it. For everybody interested, please be sure to visit the front desk and sign the card that we'll be delivering to the nursing home after the broadcast.
Yeah, we had to remove Wiz from this game in a wheelchair. Very unfortunate. No, obviously it sucks. Like, I'm sure he would have wanted to play this and play it his best. I can't imagine it's a great feeling knowing that you're going in with a literal handicap. So, it was great that he even played this. He could have honestly just forfeited this one and no one would have given a hard time. At least, I would give him a hard time, but jokingly, I wouldn't actually be like, come on. So yeah, really cool he played this one. Poto, once again, played really well. Poto's another player who's really improved this tournament. He's gone from someone who just doesn't play duels at all to like a really high-tier duel player. So that's super cool to see as well. But at the same time, it wasn't too much of a competition. The margins were fairly close considering that, Wiz was injured. But like, Poto must have known going into this that he had a distinct advantage. And so I'm sure that helped not only with his confidence, but just knowing that he can outplay him, especially in like tight scenarios where he has to move around a lot. So yeah, well fought from Poto. Great to see Wiz actually show up for this, and yeah, I hope he recovers.
Yeah, it's almost like a PSA territory, to be honest, because this game is very, very hard on your tendons or your arm muscles, that sort of thing. Like, if you have signs of strain, please take care of yourself. But let's not take away at all from Poto, who did play very well. He was a very courteous player when in the demo, X-Wiz did ask for a break, and Poto was absolutely willing to abide by that. So great sportsmanship from Poto, great play and improvement from Poto over the course of this league. Well played and well earned. Let's move on to the lower bracket of the intermediate division, where we saw the final game of the lower bracket, Killer 007 against Dragon, in a best of... Wait. No, that's best of 3 still. See, I'm getting all mixed up. No, 2-1 for Dragon, where Killer won 50-44 on his home field of Class 219. Dragon then came back to win 50-27 on King 1, much different margin. And then Dragon moved on to win 50-38 on Lazarus 4. So we saw, Dragon did lead by the entire game in King 1, but he struggled a little bit in Class 219. It was still pretty close in the tiebreaker Lazarus when I was watching the demo, and Dragon initially trailed at the start of the map, then came back to kind of take the lead away from Killer, but still a very close match on a map like Lazarus, which is every player kind of has had trouble dominating on that map, which is a good map for tournament play.
Yeah, exactly. I think this whole matchup kind of goes to show that I think Killer's probably one of the most underrated players in the whole tournament, out of any bracket, to be honest. This decided whoever was going into the finals, and so it was a really important game despite it being best of 3. And yeah, Killer put in a really good fight, one on his home field, which is always good to see. I think if there was one thing I could say as to why perhaps the result was what it was, I think Dragon's perhaps just a little bit more of a versatile player, maybe a little bit more of a careful player. I think I've said that several times before, but even just in gameplay we're seeing, you see he's doing everything quite purposefully. He's not really rushing out and doing anything really insane, really like just luck based.
Very conscious of his opponent's position.
Exactly, yeah. And not that Killer doesn't do that, but you'll notice he really excels on maps like Class 219, which is just almost a practice map, I feel like sometimes, where obviously it takes a lot of skill to play, you know, really good aim and movement, but it only seems to really test your mechanics more so than it does tests your strategy. And I think with Dragon just having perhaps a little bit better strategy than Killer does, I think that's really what won him this.
I would agree. I also would like to bring up that Dragon, I believe, has played more Duel overall than Killer has. So that does count for a lot. When we see little kind of finesse between players, it does tend to come down to experience, knowing your opponent's position, knowing your opponent's strength, and acting accordingly, and controlling not only your movement and your position of power in the map, but also your opponent's. So congratulations to Dragon, who then moved on to the match we're going to cover next, which was extremely exciting to broadcast and cover. The championship game in the intermediate division, Salt Mine against Dragon, where Salt Mine did come in with a round advantage. So we really only saw 4 rounds overall, but what a 4-round match it was. Salt Mine with that 1-0 lead. Dragon then won 50-37 on King 1. Salt Mine took his home field of Pobla 50-37. Dragon came back to win 50-47 on King 1, pushing it to the final round on the tiebreaker map Lazarus 4, and won the championship 50-49. It went down to 1 frag. What more could you ask for?
Yeah, I think, you know, I said Amar versus Lang was one of the highlights of the tournament. I think this is the highlight of the tournament so far. This was ridiculous, especially when it was streamed live. For it to come down to 1 frag at the very end is almost unheard of. Like you couldn't see this replicated again.
For me personally, watching this, there were points where we didn't commentate because we were so captured by what was happening. For people who have not seen the match, there is a VOD up, but you will see during the game that there are times where each player is up by like 8 or so frags, and then they lose that lead when the other player rallies. It's something you don't see too often after 3 solid games where players are trying so hard to get the advantage over each other. So these players were playing like their stamina was not weakening in any way, shape, or form, and they were still playing very strong.
Yeah, it was extremely back and forth. I think Salt Mine sort of played in a similar sense that Killer played, but perhaps with a little bit more finesse. And so, once again, if I had to blame any reason for Dragon winning or Salt Mine losing, I think it just came down to his strategy. You know, he came into rough patches where he was going down, like you said, like 8 frags, but then he'd just rally it back because he'd slow it down a little bit, control the pace of the match, and then all of a sudden you see him come back and he's only 1 or 2 frags down, and then he wins it, of course, by close margins, but it's not really what matters at the end of the day. One really important part, which I noticed, is the final frag between these two, the 49-50, at the very end of the last match. Everything came down to it. We saw Dragon spawn down below twice with the SSG, and then we had Salt Mine at the top, kind of by like where the exit is on Lazarus with just the normal shotgun. And Saltmine gets 1 kill with the shotgun, and on the final kill, what everything came down to, he tries to risk it all with a 1-shot shotgun kill. And I think that's just kind of obviously just one example, but it sort of sums up the way Saltmine played. And I know he had some lag, and I know there was like more than just, you know, one factor going into it. But I think perhaps at times he was a little bit too aggressive. He tried to force his opponent into bad situations when he was really the one in bad situations. And so if there was one thing I could say to this, I think it'd just be Saltmine needs to slow things down occasionally, tries to like change up the pace of the game, and that's what Dragon did, and I think that's ultimately what won him the game.
Saltmine does play extremely well on his home field of Puebla 8, which does require a bit of conservative play. You're dealing with mostly shotgun kills, where you do have typically 2-shot kills at best, if not for a lucky 1-shot. Saltmine not moving from the upper podium after being, I believe he was hurt after the first frag, and going even for that 2-shot. I believe there was also a grazing blow on Dragon, and he did not back off. That came down to, and if Dragon had missed that shot from below, which does happen with a super shotgun, that would have been, we would have been talking about it the other way around.
I think so, yeah. I think just from the way I saw it, I think Saltmine rolled the dice in a situation where he should have taken control, backed off, maybe done that jump from where the rocket launcher is, got the SSG, slowed things down. You know, if he was really hurt, he could have even killed himself with the rocket launcher, something like that, and just tried to regain control of the map. Obviously, there's only 1 frag left, so it's all going to happen very quickly. But just rolling the dice in that situation with nothing but a shotgun in your hands, obviously was not the right choice.
It certainly didn't pan out, but I mean, the topic here is how well Dragon had played with a 1-round disadvantage. Just talk about a rally. I almost couldn't believe it when it happened. The hype levels were off the charts. Dragon coming back from a full round disadvantage, winning his own home field by only 3 frags, and then winning the final tiebreaker game by 1 kill. Phenomenal.
Yeah, and he was on sudden death for a little while there too, so it was all against him.
He did have to win those 2 rounds in a row, because Saltmine, after winning round 3, he was 3-1. Or I mean, no, it's 2-1. Sorry. So it was championship. Yeah, it was championship point for him. Yeah. Hell of a game. Congratulations to Dragon. Great try from Saltmine, and it shows that even the smallest decisions can lead to you walking away with the trophy or going home empty-handed.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of does it for our recap. We covered a championship match and a few matches that had already occurred in the pro bracket. I think that's not a whole lot to really talk about otherwise. It's a pretty short recap. Next week will also be pretty short because there are going to be 2 games we'll cover, and then we'll go over the grand finals between Nexus and Lang. So
that's right.
Not a whole lot going on our side, but we do want to thank everybody for playing their games in pretty short order, knocking out these lower bracket games and getting the championships done one after the other has been an absolute treat, because honestly, we do this for fun. Life gets in the way, and games are hard to schedule.
Yeah, exactly. So getting everything done quickly was good, especially the last day. Literally, a couple of games have happened, and now nothing but the finals between myself and Lang coming up here. And actually, Zen, is there anything you want to say about the finals? Is there any predictions you want to make?
Ooh, predictions. Well, okay, so you will be going in. Let's go over the format. It's a best of 5. You'll be going in with a 1-round advantage, and the first map will be SSL2 because it'll skip your map because if you effectively win that by advantage. And then the first gameplay we'll see will be on Lang's home field, which he's only lost once, and he did not lose it by a large margin. So that will determine initial momentum in the game, and that can affect players mentally as well. So, do I have a prediction? It's going to be tough. It's going to come down to how Lang will approach Judas 23. I believe he will win his home field.
Okay.
What
Yeah.
what is the tiebreaker map if we do see it pushed to round 5?
So the tiebreaker map, it will be the classic D5M1 actually that we see in the background here. So that fits well. Oh, it switches to his home field. Boo, bad karma.
Boo.
No, no I
So
think
Dwango 5 map 1. It's a pretty large map for those who are unfamiliar with it. It's a very well-known map. We used to play it non-stop back in the day. Hold on, let me take my Metamucil real quick. But it is typically played pretty conservatively nowadays, so this may be something that Lang's newfound style will give him the edge on, but it also can be played pretty tactically, which we see Nexus play well on Judas 23. I think we may see Nexus walk away from this because of his one-round advantage, 3-2.
Okay, it's a cool prediction. I think you might be right in a sense. I'm not going to predict what I think will happen because I haven't done it in the previous recaps. I don't think it's particularly sportsmanlike. But yeah, I think it'll be very close. Even in practice, we're very back and forth. With Lang's new playstyle, the only thing I will say is it's very strong. He has slowed himself down. He has gotten the pace together. You do still see him slip into that sort of, monkey see, monkey do, let me go run at the player sort of mentality. I mean, that's the best way possible.
Try to force an error is probably how I would put it.
Yeah.
Make a player panic.
So yeah, and I've been playing the entire time. I've been playing as I'm a little bit of a slower player than Lang is. Not to say that I'm a slow player, but yeah, this could really go either way. I think you might be right in the sense that I will probably struggle on SSL too. It's not my strongest map ever, and it's one of Lang's strongest maps ever. So I think it really comes down to how I will play on Judas, and then if I can be a little bit more patient than he is, if we see a tiebreaker on D5M1. But yeah, it'll be super interesting, and hopefully I can try and live up to the intermediate finals, although that will be hard to do.
Yeah, that was a hell of a game, but we're going to see two very strong players go head-to-head in a best-of-5 finale for the first season of Rampage Duel League. As always, thank you, Nexus, for joining me, and thank you everybody at home who's kind of tuning into this live. It's pretty late in pretty much every time zone that I can think of. And if you missed any part of this, obviously it will be up on YouTube along with the intermediate finals. Please give that a watch. That was very hype. Very fun to cast. And
yeah,
pretty short and sweet otherwise. Any parting words?
No, I think I'll just repeat what you said. Definitely watch those intermediate finals, and thanks for having me.
No problem. And we are going to play you guys out as we have in the weeks before by looking at the matches briefly. Thank you to everybody, and have a good evening. Stay tuned for the Pro Division finals, and if you're not already in the Rampage Discord, there will be an announcement when that goes live, so that should be very fun to catch live. All right, everybody, we're signing out. Have a good one.